The medical bay of Station Zenith 7 was filled with noise and movement. Doctors and nurses rushed between machines that beeped and flashed. In the center of it all lay a creature unlike anything most humans had ever seen, and was of a species that looked like a massive wolf, but stood nearly 8 feet tall at the shoulder. His fur was deep blue with silver markings that ran down his spine. Right now, that beautiful fur was matted with dried blood, and his breathing came in shallow, painful gasps. Doctor stood over the dying creature with all 4 of his arms crossed. The doctor had scales that changed from green to gray when he was stressed. Right now, they were almost completely gray. "His neural pathways are collapsing," said to his team. "The damage is too severe. Even our most advanced treatments are not working." A younger doctor, her tentacles wrapped nervously around her data pad, spoke up. "Should we try the synthesis again, perhaps at a higher dose?" Shook his head. "We have tried everything. The synthesis, the neural stimulators, even the experimental regeneration therapy from the Institute. Nothing is stopping the deterioration." And let out a low sound that was half growl, half whimper. His eyes were closed, and his massive body trembled. The medical equipment showed his vital signs dropping steadily. "He is in pain," another doctor said quietly. This one was from a species that valued mercy above all else. "We should consider ending his suffering." Looked at for a long moment. He had been a doctor for 40 years and had saved thousands of lives, but he had also learned when to let go. "Prepare the euthanasia protocol. We will give him peace." The medical team moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this before, though never for a. These creatures were special, almost sacred to many species. They were companions to the royal family and were known across the galaxy for their intelligence and empathy. Outside the medical bay, the corridors of Station Zenith 7 were busy with the usual traffic. The station orbited Prime and served as a hub for diplomatic meetings and medical emergencies. Ships came and went constantly, bringing visitors from across the galaxy. Commander Lisa Grant walked through one of these corridors with a young boy at her side. She was a human military officer assigned to protect the family of Ambassador Harrison. The boy next to her was the ambassador's son, Danny, who was 12 years old and curious about everything. "Can we see the observation deck?" Danny asked. He had been on the station for 2 hours and was already bored with the diplomatic quarters. "Later," Lisa said. "Your father wants you to stay close until his meeting is finished." Danny sighed but kept walking. Then he heard something that made him stop. It was a sound like an animal in pain, muffled by the thick walls but still audible. "What was that?" he asked. Lisa frowned. "Probably from the medical bay. They treat all kinds of species here. Come on, we should not get in their way." But Danny was already moving toward the sound. He had always been like this, unable to ignore an animal in distress. Back on Earth, he had brought home stray cats, injured birds, and once even a fox with a broken leg. "Danny, wait," Lisa called, but the boy was already at the medical bay entrance. The doors were open and Danny could see inside. His eyes went wide. In the center of the room was the biggest creature he had ever seen. It looked like a wolf, but much, much larger. Its fur was blue and silver, and it was lying on a platform surrounded by strange machines. Several alien doctors stood around it. One of them, a reptilian being with 4 arms, was holding a device that looked like a syringe but much more complex. Danny stepped inside without thinking. Lisa rushed after him, but she was too late to stop him from speaking. "What are you doing to him?" Danny asked. All the alien doctors turned to look at the human boy. Scales shifted from gray to a surprised yellow. "Child, you should not be here," said. His translator made his words sound cold, but there was sadness in his large eyes. "This is a medical procedure." "Are you helping him?" Danny moved closer to N. Up close, that was even more impressive. His head was as big as Danny's entire body. "We are ending his pain," said carefully. "He is dying. We have tried everything, but his injuries are too severe. The kindest thing we can do now is let him go peacefully." Danny looked at the creature's face. An's eyes were closed, but tears leaked from beneath his eyelids. The boy had seen that look before on his dog Max when he was dying 2 years ago. It was the look of someone who was scared and alone. "Can I say goodbye to him?" Danny asked quietly. Exchanged glances with his team. They all seemed confused by the request. "I suppose there is no harm," the doctor said finally. "But be quick. We cannot let him suffer longer than necessary. Lisa started to protest, but something in Danny's expression stopped her. She had been guarding this family for 3 years and had learned that the boy had a way with animals that was almost supernatural. Danny walked slowly to inside. The platform was high, so he had to reach up to touch the creature. His small hand landed on this massive head just between his ears. "Hey there," Danny whispered. "I know you are scared, I know it hurts." En's eyes flickered but did not open. Danny kept his hand on this head and continued talking. "My name is Danny. I am here with you now. You do not have to be alone." Something changed in the room. The beeping of the machines shifted slightly. One of the alien doctors looked at her monitor in surprise. "His neural activity just increased," she said. Moved closer to check the readings. "That is impossible. The pathways were nearly gone." But the monitors did not lie. En's vital signs, which had been dropping steadily, had stabilized. His breathing was still labored, but not quite as desperate. Danny placed his other hand on En's head and leaned close. "I am here," he said softly. "Stay with me, please stay with me." The massive creature let out a long, shuddering breath. For the first time in days, Danny did not move from inside. His hands stayed on this head, and he kept talking in that same soft, steady voice. He told the creature about his home on Earth, about the ocean he could see from his bedroom window, about his favorite foods and the books he liked to read. En's golden eyes stayed fixed on the boy. The pain in them was still there, but something had changed. The desperation was fading, replaced by a calm focus. Doctor circled the platform, checking every monitor and scanner. His 4 arms moved independently, adjusting settings and recording data. His scales kept changing colors as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. "The neural regeneration has not just stopped declining," he said to his team. "It is actually improving. Look at these readings. The pathways we thought were dead are showing activity again." The younger doctor moved closer, her tentacles trembling with excitement. "How is this possible? We tried every treatment protocol, nothing worked." "I do not know," admitted. The words were hard for him to say. He had spent his entire career believing that medicine was a science with clear rules and predictable outcomes. This made no sense. Commander Lisa Grant stood near the door, torn between her duty to keep Danny safe and her recognition that something important was happening. She tapped her communication device. "Grant to Doctor, we have a situation in Medical Bay 3. I need you here immediately." Dr. Sophie arrived 5 minutes later. She was a human doctor who had been stationed on Zenith 7 for 2 years, serving as the medical officer for human visitors and diplomats. She was in her 40s with short black hair and kind eyes that had seen many strange things in her career. She stopped at the entrance, taking in the scene. A human boy with his hands on a massive alien creature. Alien doctors standing around with confused expressions, monitors showing impossible results. "What happened here?" Sophie asked. Turned to her. "The human child touched and now the creature is stabilizing. Can you explain this?" Sophie walked closer, studying both Danny and En carefully. She watched how the boy's hands rested gently on the creature's head. She noticed how En's breathing had synced with Danny's, slow and steady. "How long has he been like this?" she asked. 15 minutes, said. "Those minutes from death. We were preparing to end his suffering. Then the boy asked to say goodbye, and when he touched En, everything changed." Sophie nodded slowly. She had read about this phenomenon but had never seen it herself. "On Earth, humans have lived alongside animals for thousands of years. We domesticated dogs, cats, horses, and many other species. We did not just train them. We formed bonds with them." "Many species keep companions," said. "That is not unusual." "But humans are different," Sophie explained. "We evolved in a way that gave us an extraordinary ability to connect emotionally with other species. We can read their body language, understand their distress, and respond to their needs. More than that, we can form attachments that go both ways. The animals we bond with become part of our families." She gestured to Danny and En. "What you are seeing here is that bond forming. Danny is not just touching he is communicating with him on an emotional level, and En is responding." Scales shifted to purple, the color of deep thought. "You are saying the boy's emotions are somehow affecting the creature's physical state?" "In a way, yes," Sophie said. "Are empathic correct? They can sense emotional states." "That is true," confirmed. "It is one of their defining characteristics." Then and can feel what Danny is feeling right now. Calm, safe, protected. For a creature that was dying alone and in pain, that emotional support might be just as important as any medical treatment. The younger doctor made a sound of disbelief. But emotions are not medicine. They do not repair damaged tissue or restore neural pathways. Do they not? Sophie asked. On Earth, we have known for centuries that emotional state affects physical health. Stress can make people sick. Loneliness can shorten lives, and the presence of someone who cares can help healing in ways we still do not fully understand. Danny shifted his weight but kept his hands on him. Can I sit down? He asked. My arms are getting tired. Lisa quickly found a chair and brought it over. Danny sat but maintained contact with and made a soft sound, almost like a purr, and moved his head slightly to stay under the boy's touch. He likes you, Sophie said to Danny with a smile. He was scared, Danny said simply. Nobody should be scared when they are dying. I just wanted him to know someone was here. Those words hit Sophie hard. She looked at and saw that the alien doctor was also affected. His scales had turned a deep blue, the color of sadness and respect. You did not think he would live, said to Danny. You just wanted to comfort him. Danny nodded. My dog died 2 years ago. I was at school when it happened. He died alone, and I never got to say goodbye. I did not want this guy to go through that. Anne's eyes closed briefly, then opened again. His gaze stayed on Danny's face. Hours passed. The medical staff took turns monitoring Anne's progress. The improvement was slow but steady. Neural pathways that had been dark were lighting up again. His breathing grew stronger. The trembling in his muscles stopped. Danny talked the whole time. He told him about his school, his friends, the time he went camping in the mountains and saw a bear. He described Earth's seasons, how the leaves changed color in autumn and how snow felt cold on his skin. Lisa brought him food, and Danny ate with one hand while keeping the other on him. Sophie checked on them regularly, always amazed by what she was witnessing. By the 6th hour, had to admit the truth. He is not just stable anymore, he is actually healing. The rate is slow, but it is measurable. This should not be possible. Sophie pulled up a chair next to. Your medicine tried to fix the physical damage. That is important, and it probably kept him alive long enough for this to work, but are not just physical beings. They are emotional and social creatures, and needed both types of healing. And the human boy provided the emotional component, said. Yes, Danny gave him a reason to keep fighting. He showed him that he was not alone, that someone cared whether he lived or died. Sometimes that makes all the difference. Looked at his own 4 hands. He had used them to operate on thousands of patients, to manipulate the most advanced medical equipment in the galaxy. But he had never thought to simply hold someone's hand and offer comfort as medicine. I have been a doctor for 40 years, he said quietly. I thought I understood healing, but this child has taught me something in 6 hours that I never learned in all that time. Sophie smiled. Humans are good at reminding people about the simple things. We are not the strongest species but we remember that sometimes the best medicine is just being there. Danny looked up at the 2 doctors. His eyes were tired and there were dark circles forming under them. Is he going to be okay? He asked. I do not know, said honestly. But you have given him a chance that he did not have before. That is no small thing. And shifted his massive body slightly. His head pressed more firmly against Danny's hands. The boy understood the gesture without words, though was saying thank you. I will stay with him, Danny said. As long as he needs me, I will stay. News traveled fast on Station Zenith 7. By the next morning, everyone knew about the human boy and the dying. Scientists, diplomats, and medical professionals found reasons to pass by Medical Bay 3. They wanted to see if the stories were true. Danny had been with him for almost 12 hours now. He had slept for a few hours in the chair, his head resting on the side. When he woke up, his hand immediately went back to Anne's head, as if making sure the creature was still there. Commander Lisa Grant had stayed in the medical bay all night, watching over both of them. She had sent regular reports to Ambassador Harrison, who was still in diplomatic meetings on the other side of the station. Doctor had not left either. He ran test after test, documenting everything. His scales had settled into a steady gold color, which meant he was fascinated and focused. He had called in specialists from 3 different medical institutes, and they were all studying the data with disbelief. The neural pathways have regenerated by 32%, one specialist said. She was from a species known for their advanced brain surgery. In 18 hours, he has recovered what should have taken months with our best treatments. If this rate continues, they will make a full recovery. How is the human child doing this? Another specialist asked. He was a species that prided itself on logic and science. There must be a physical mechanism. Perhaps the human is releasing some chemical compound through skin contact. Dr. Sophie, who had returned after a few hours of sleep, shook her head. We ran those tests already. There is no chemical transfer. What Danny is doing cannot be measured by our instruments because it is not physical. It is emotional. The specialist made a dismissive gesture. Emotions do not heal damaged nerves. Maybe not for your species, Sophie said, but are different. They are empathic creatures who evolved in social groups. Their brain chemistry is directly affected by emotional states, both their own and others around them. When he was dying, he was not just physically damaged. He was emotionally traumatized and isolated. That made the physical healing impossible. She pointed to Danny, who was talking quietly to him about a movie he had seen. Danny changed that. He provided emotional stability and companionship. For an empathic creature like N, that emotional support triggers a neurochemical response that promotes healing. The boy is not healing, though, with magic. He is creating the emotional environment that allows the to heal himself. Listened carefully to this explanation. It made sense in a way that his traditional medical training had not prepared him for. So the human's emotions are affecting the biology. Yes, and it works because humans are incredibly good at forming these connections. On Earth, we have therapy animals that help people with emotional problems. We have studies showing that people who own pets live longer and recover from illness faster. We even have cases where coma patients wake up when their dogs are brought to visit them. The specialist looked skeptical but said nothing. The evidence was right in front of him, impossible to deny. The doors to the medical bay opened, and Ambassador Harrison walked in. He was a tall man in his 40s with graying hair and a stern expression. He looked around the room until his eyes found his son. Danny, he said, his voice tight with controlled emotion. The boy looked up. Dad, I am sorry. I know I was supposed to stay in quarters, but I heard him and I just had to help. Walked over to where Danny sat. He looked at him, taking in the massive size of the creature and the medical equipment surrounding him. Then he looked at his son's tired face. Lisa told me what you did, said. She said you saved his life. Danny shook his head. I just stayed with him. The doctors did all the real work. Stepped forward. Actually, Ambassador, your son did something we could not do. He gave the hope and companionship when we had given up. Without him and would be dead. Was quiet for a moment, then he knelt down next to Danny's chair. Your mother would be proud of you, he said softly. She always said you had a gift with animals. Danny's eyes got wet. His mother had died 3 years ago, and he still missed her every day. She used to say that animals know when someone really cares about them. She was right, said. He put his hand on Danny's shoulder. But you have been here for hours. You need to rest properly. Let the doctors take over for a while. I cannot leave him, Dad. He needs me. Before could respond, the medical bay doors opened again. This time, a different kind of visitor entered. She was tall and elegant, with skin that seemed to shimmer between silver and gold. Her eyes were large and completely black, and she moved with a grace that seemed almost liquid. Ra said, bowing his head in respect, we did not expect you so soon. Ra was from the... She was a member of the royal family and had been bonded to him since they were both young. When news reached her that he was dying, she had taken the fastest ship available. She had expected to arrive too late. She had already mourned her companion during the long journey through space. Now she stood at the entrance, staring at the scene before her. And was alive. He was injured and weak, but his eyes were open and aware. And sitting next to him was a small human child with his hand on An's head. What happened? Ra asked, her voice musical and strange. I was told and was dying that there was no hope. There was no hope, said, until this human boy arrived. Ra walked slowly to An's side. They saw her and made a sound deep in his chest. It was a sound of recognition and love. Tears appeared in Ra's black eyes. My friend, she whispered, placing her hand on his side. I thought I had lost you. An's tail moved slightly, the closest he could come to wagging it in his current state. Ra turned to look at Danny. The boy met her alien gaze without fear. Why did you do this? She asked. You do not know and he is not your responsibility. Danny thought about the question. He was scared and in pain. Nobody should have to go through that alone. I just wanted him to know someone was there, that someone cared if he lived or died. Ra studied the human child for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised everyone in the room. She knelt down, bringing her face level with Danny's. "On we have old stories," she said. "Legends about a species that could heal with their hearts instead of their hands. A people who formed bonds with creatures not their own kind, who could feel the pain of others as if it were their own pain. Most of us thought these stories were myths, beautiful but not real." She reached out and gently touched Danny's cheek. Her hand was warm and felt like silk. "But you are real, you are what the legends spoke of, you are human." Danny did not know what to say to that. He just kept his hand on his head. Ra stood up and looked at, "What is his prognosis?" "If he continues to improve at this rate, he will make a full recovery," said. "But I must be honest with you, we do not fully understand what is happening. The boy's presence seems to be essential to the healing process. When he sleeps or moves away, and's vital signs become less stable. When he returns and maintains contact, the healing resumes." "Then the boy must stay," Ra said simply. Started to protest. "My son cannot live in a medical bay. He has school responsibilities, a life." "And it has a life too," Ra said, not unkindly. "A life that your son is preserving. I understand this is difficult, Ambassador. But I am asking you to allow this to continue, at least until it is stable enough to be without the boy's support." Looked at Danny, who looked back at him with pleading eyes. The ambassador sighed. "How long?" Checked his monitors. "At the current rate of improvement, perhaps a week, maybe less if the healing accelerates." "A week," repeated. He looked at his son again, seeing the determination in the boy's face. It was the same determination his wife had when she believed in something. "All right. But I want medical staff watching him at all times. He needs proper meals and real sleep." "Of course," agreed. Ra placed her hand over her heart, a gesture of gratitude. "Thank you, Ambassador. Your son has done something precious. He has shown mercy to a creature not his own kind. We will remember this." She turned back to En and spoke to him in a language the translators could not process. It was a series of clicks and low sounds that seemed to come from deep in her chest, and responded with similar sounds. Danny watched the exchange with fascination. What are they saying? 3 days passed. Danny stayed in Medical Bay 3 for almost all of that time. The station staff set up a proper bed for him next to his platform. They brought him food, books, and even a portable screen so he could watch movies. But Danny spent most of his time talking to thee or simply sitting with his hand on the creature's side. And improved steadily. His breathing was stronger now, and he could lift his head without help. The medical scans showed his neural pathways were nearly 70% restored. Doctor documented everything, filling reports with data that would change how the galaxy understood healing. But not everyone was happy about the situation. Administrator arrived on the 4th day. He was like one of the specialists who had visited earlier. His species valued rules and order above all else, and the current situation violated many protocols. "This is highly irregular," announced as he entered the medical bay. He was tall and thin with gray skin and eyes that were too large for his face. "A human child has been living in a medical facility for days. There are regulations about who can be in treatment areas. There are rules about patient visitors. This situation violates at least 12 different station protocols." Doctor looked up from his monitors. His scales shifted to red, the color of annoyance. "The boy is not just a visitor. He is part of the treatment." "That is absurd," said. "Patients are treated by qualified medical professionals using approved techniques. Children are not medical equipment." "No, they are not," agreed. "But in this case, the child is providing something our equipment cannot. He is giving them a reason to heal." Walked around the medical bay, his hands clasped behind his back. He looked at Danny, who was currently reading a book while keeping one hand on En. The boy looked tired, with shadows under his eyes and messy hair. "The child appears exhausted," observed. "This cannot be healthy for him." Commander Lisa Grant stepped forward. She had been defensive of Danny from the start. "He gets 8 hours of sleep every night. He eats 3 meals a day. Doctor checks his health twice daily. He is fine. He is a minor who should be with his family, attending his education, not playing nurse to an alien creature." "I am not playing," Danny said quietly, looking up from his book. And it is not just a creature, he has a name, he has feelings, he was dying and I helped him. Is that against your rules too? Was not used to being challenged, especially by human children. I am trying to protect you and maintain proper station procedures. The procedures almost killed him, Danny said, nodding toward Anne. Your medical protocol said he could not be saved. They said the best thing to do was let him die. But he is not dead. He is getting better. Maybe your procedures are not always right. Ra, who had been standing quietly in the corner, spoke up. The boy is correct. Your medicine failed where human compassion succeeded. That is not something to be ashamed of, Administrator. It is something to learn from. Turn to her. With respect, Lady Ra, we cannot run a medical facility based on emotions and feelings. Medicine is a science. Is it? Said, surprising everyone. The alien doctor walked over to stand next to Danny. I believed that too. I spent 40 years studying the science of healing. I learned every technique, every treatment, every protocol. And when it was brought to me dying, I used all of that knowledge. I tried everything. He placed one of his 4 hands on Danny's shoulder. But it was not enough. All of my science, all of my equipment, all of my training could not save him. Do you know what did save him? A 12-year-old boy who did not know any medical procedures. He just knew that nobody should die alone and scared. Scales turned deep blue, the color of profound sadness and understanding. This child taught me that healing is more than repairing tissue and balancing chemicals. It is about giving someone hope. It is about showing them that they matter, that someone cares if they live or die. I learned more about being a doctor in these 4 days than I did in my entire career. The medical bay was quiet, even seemed affected by the words. The boy can stay, the administrator finally said. But I want daily reports on his. If there is any sign he is being harmed by this arrangement, it ends immediately. Agreed, Lisa said. After left, the medical bay returned to its normal quiet routine. Danny went back to his book, but noticed the boy's hands were shaking slightly. Are you all right? The doctor asked. Danny nodded, but his eyes looked wet. I am fine. Sophie, who had been watching the exchange, came over and knelt by Danny's chair. You do not have to be fine all the time, you know. What you are doing is hard. It is okay to be tired or scared or sad. I just keep thinking about Max, Danny said quietly. Max was the dog he had mentioned before, the one who died while Danny was at school. I could not save him. I tried so hard to save him, but he was so sick and I was just a kid who did not know what to do. Sophie took Danny's hand. You were 9 years old. Max had cancer. Even the best veterinarians could not have saved him. That was not your fault. I know that in my head, Danny said. But it does not feel true. I still think about him every day. I still wish I could have been there when he died so he would not be alone. Is that why you are staying with N? Sophie asked gently. Because you could not be there for Max. Danny looked at the who was watching him with those golden eyes. Maybe. I do not know. I just know that when I saw N dying, I saw Max, and I could not walk away. Commander Lisa sat down on Danny's other side. What you are doing is brave, but Sophie is right. You do not have to carry this alone. We are all here to help. I know, Danny said, but it needs me. When I am here, he gets better. When I leave for too long, his numbers get worse. Doctor showed me the graphs. It was true. The medical data was clear. Ann's healing rate was directly connected to Danny's presence and emotional state. When the boy was calm and nearby, the improved. When Danny was upset or absent, the progress slowed. It is a lot of responsibility for someone your age, Lisa said. I can handle it, Danny insisted. Then he paused, but I am really tired. Then rest, Sophie said. Lie down in your bed and sleep, and we'll be fine for a few hours. But what if he needs me? He needs you to be healthy, said. The alien doctor had been listening to the whole conversation. You cannot care for him if you are exhausted. Rest now. We will wake you if there are any problems. Danny looked uncertain, but his eyes were heavy. He had not admitted how tired he really was. Okay, but just for a little while. He moved to the bed they had set up for him. Before lying down, he walked back to Ann and placed his hand on his head one more time. I will be right here if you need me, he said. I promise I am not leaving. And made a soft sound and moved his massive head to nuzzle against Danny's hand. The gesture was gentle, almost protective. They understood. Danny climbed into bed and was asleep within minutes. His breathing evened out, and some of the tension left his young face. Ra watched from across the room. That child carries heavy burdens for one so young. All humans do, Sophie said. They feel things deeply. Pain, joy, love, loss. It is both their greatest strength and their greatest weakness. He is hurting himself to save En, Ra observed. No, said, studying his monitors. He is healing himself while healing En. Look at his neural patterns. They mirror this. When one improves, so does the other. This bond they have formed is helping both of them. Sophie understood what meant. Danny had been carrying guilt about his dog's death for years. By saving En, he was working through that trauma. The boy needed this as much as the did. That night, something remarkable happened. En, who had been lying down for days, struggled to his feet. The massive creature was weak and unsteady, but he managed to stand. Then, slowly and carefully, he walked the few steps to where Danny slept. 2 weeks after Danny first touched En, was completely healed. He walked around the medical bay with strength and grace, his blue and silver fur shining under the lights. The medical scans showed his neural pathways had regenerated fully. By every measure, he was healthy. Doctor had documented everything. His reports filled hundreds of pages with data, observations, and theories. Medical professionals from across the galaxy were reading about the human boy and the dying. Some called it a miracle. Others called it impossible. But nobody could deny the results. The Galactic Medical Council sent a representative to investigate. His name was, and he was known for being skeptical and demanding proof. He was from a species that lived for logic and evidence. Stories about emotional healing sounded like superstition to him. He arrived at Station Zenith 7 with a team of analysts and immediately requested to see all the medical records. Provided everything, knowing that the data spoke for itself. Spent 2 days reviewing the information. He checked the scans, the timeline, and interviewed the medical staff. When he was done, he called a meeting in the medical bay. I have reviewed the evidence, announced. He stood stiffly, his metallic-looking skin reflecting the lights. There was indeed dying. Your initial diagnosis was correct. By all medical standards, euthanasia was the appropriate response. But something changed when the human child arrived. This vital signs stabilized and then improved. The neural regeneration that occurred is documented, and I cannot dispute the facts. So you believe what happened here? Sophie asked. Looked uncomfortable. I believe the data. I cannot explain it with current medical theory, but I cannot deny it either. Something about the human's presence triggered a healing response in the... Danny was sitting within the corner of the medical bay. The boy had one hand on the side while he used the other to work on his schoolwork. Commander Lisa had brought him lessons, so he would not fall behind in his education. Can you demonstrate this connection? Asked, looking at Danny. The boy looked up from his math problems. Demonstrate how. Show me how your presence affects the... If this is real, it should be observable. Danny shrugged. Okay. He stood up and walked to the other side of the medical bay, putting distance between himself and En. He immediately became alert. His ears went up and his golden eyes tracked Danny's movement, and stood and took a few steps toward the boy, making a low sound of distress. Checked his monitors. The stress levels are rising, heart rate increasing. Danny walked back to En and placed his hand on the creature's head. It is okay, he said softly. I am right here. And calmed instantly. His breathing slowed and he leaned into Danny's touch. The monitors showed his stress levels returning to normal. Watched this with his large, unblinking eyes. This is remarkable. He is emotionally dependent on the human. It is not just dependency, Ross said. She had been present for the demonstration. It is a bond and trusts Danny. He knows the boy will not abandon him. That trust is what allows him to remain calm and continue healing. But Thea is physically healed now, pointed out. Why does he still need the boy? Because healing is not just physical, explained. He had learned this lesson well over the past 2 weeks. And suffered trauma both from his injuries and from facing death. Danny helped him through that. The bond they formed is real and important. It will not disappear just because the medical crisis is over. Was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something surprising. He approached Danny and knelt down to the boy's level. I came here expecting to find errors in the medical records or exaggerations in the reports, said. But what I found instead is proof that the galaxy's understanding of healing is incomplete. You have shown us something valuable, young human, something we should have known all along. What is that? Danny asked. That medicine without compassion is only half of healing. We can repair bodies with our technology, but we cannot heal hearts and minds the same way. That requires something else, something your species seems to have in abundance. Danny did not know what to say to that. He just nodded, stood and turned to. I will recommend to the council that we establish a new field of study, emotional therapy. We need to understand how bonds like this one can aid in healing. Perhaps humans can teach us. I would be willing to share my research, said. And I will fund it, Ra added. The royal family wants to support this work. What happened here saved An's life. If it can help others, we must pursue it. Over the next few days, preparations were made for Danny and his father to return home. The diplomatic mission was complete, and it was time for the family to go back to Earth. Danny tried not to think about leaving. Every time he did, his chest felt tight and his eyes got wet. He had spent 2 weeks with An, barely leaving the side. The creature had become as important to him as Max had been. On the last evening before departure, Ambassador Harrison found his son sitting with An in the medical bay. The boy had his arms around the neck, his face buried in the creature's fur. Danny said gently, "We need to talk about tomorrow." "I do not want to leave him, Dad." Sat down next to his son. "I know, but we have to go home. You have school and I have work. We cannot stay on the station forever." "But what if An needs me? What if he gets sick again?" "He is healthy now. Doctor confirmed it. He is strong enough to be on his own." "But he will miss me, and I will miss him." Put his arm around Danny's shoulders. Sometimes caring about someone means letting them go back to their own life, and belongs on with his people. You belong on Earth with your family and friends. "I know," Danny said, his voice breaking, "but it hurts." "Yes, it does. Love always hurts a little when you have to say goodbye, but that does not make the love less real or less important." Ra entered the medical bay at that moment. She had been waiting for the right time to speak with Danny privately. "May I join you?" she asked. Nodded and moved to give her space. Ra sat down gracefully next to Danny, her shimmering skin catching the light. "And will return to with me tomorrow," she said. "He is strong enough to travel now, but I want you to know something, Danny. What you did for him, what you gave him, will never be forgotten." "I just stayed with him," Danny said quietly. "You did more than that. You showed him compassion when he had given up hope. You refused to let him die alone. On we have a saying, the pack is everything. You became part of An's pack. That bond is sacred." Ra reached into a pouch at her side and pulled out a small object. It was a crystal that glowed with a soft blue light. "This is a bond stone. We give them to those who have proven themselves true friends to our people. I want you to have it." She placed the stone in Danny's hand. It was warm and seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. "Whenever you hold this, and will know, he will feel your presence across the distance, and you will be welcome on any time you wish to visit. Our world will always have a place for the human boy who saved one of our most precious creatures." Danny looked at the stone, then at Ra, then at An. "I can visit him." "As often as you like. I will arrange it with your father. In 6 months, when the diplomatic season begins again, I will personally invite your family to. You can see An in his home forests. You can run with him under our 3 moons. He would like that very much." For the first time since learning he had to leave, Danny smiled. "Really, I can see him again." "You have my word. The bond between you and An is not ending. It is only changing. You will see him again." That night, Danny slept next to An one last time. They stayed close to the boy, protective and gentle. Neither of them wanted the night to end. Morning came too quickly. Danny packed his few belongings and said goodbye to the medical staff. Doctor gave him a data chip containing all the medical records. "So you can remember what you accomplished here," the alien doctor said. "You changed how I understand healing. Thank you for that." Sophie hugged Danny tight. "You did good, kid. I am proud of you." Commander Lisa saluted him, which made Danny laugh despite his sadness. Finally, it was time to say goodbye to An. Danny walked to where they waited. The massive creature lowered his head, and Danny wrapped his arms around An's neck one last time. "I will see you again," Danny whispered. "In 6 months, I promise." And made a sound that was both sad and hopeful. He lifted one of his huge paws and placed it over Danny's heart. It was a gesture, Ra had explained. It meant, "You are part of my pack forever." Danny placed his small hand over An's chest, right where his heart beat strong and steady. "You are part of mine too," he said. As Danny walked away toward the docking bay where his transport waited, he held the bond stone tight in his hand. Behind him, and watched until the boy disappeared from view. Later that day, Doctor recorded his final log entry about the case. For 40 years, I believed healing was a science that could be measured and controlled. I believed the best medicine came from the most advanced technology and the most refined techniques. But a human child showed me I was wrong. Paused, choosing his words carefully. Danny did not heal him with medicine or machines. He healed him with compassion, patience, and presence. He showed me that sometimes the best treatment is simply being there for someone who is suffering. He reminded me that healing involves not just the body, but also the heart and mind. The alien doctor looked at the empty medical bay, where they had spent 2 weeks recovering. Humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy. They are not the or the most technologically advanced, but they have something the rest of us seem to have lost or never had. They remember that every life matters. They refuse to give up on someone just because saving them is difficult. They form bonds across species barriers that should be impossible. Scales shifted to gold, the color of wisdom and understanding. We have much to learn from them, and I, for one, am grateful for the lesson. 6 months later, Danny returned with his father, when their ship landed in the royal capital and was waiting. They ran across the landing field, his blue and silver fur shining in the light of 3 moons. Danny jumped from the transport before it had fully stopped. Boy and met in the middle, colliding in a tangle of fur and laughter and joy. The people who witnessed the reunion would talk about it for years. They would tell stories about the human boy who refused to let one of their own die alone. They would remember that sometimes the greatest medicine is not found in a laboratory. It is found in the simple act of placing your hand on someone who is suffering and saying, "I am here, stay with me," and lowered himself to the floor next to the boy's bed. He placed his large head on the mattress, close to Danny's hand. They let out a long, contented breath and closed his eyes. Doctor watched on his monitors, documenting this new development, but he did not interfere. He understood now that some things were more important than medical protocols. The human boy and the alien creature slept side by side, both healing from wounds that went deeper than any scanner could detect. "She is telling him about home," Sophie explained. "About the forests and the packs and everything waiting for him when he recovers. And he is telling her about you, about the human boy who would not let him die alone." Danny felt his face get warm. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Ra said, turning to look at him. "You did what only a human would do. That is why you are special." Lisa started to protest, thinking about the ambassador and schedules and proper procedures. But Sophie put a hand on her arm and shook her head. "Let him stay," Sophie said. "Right now, Danny is the most important medicine this station has." And opened his eyes. They were golden and intelligent, filled with pain, but also something else. Hope, maybe, or recognition. The alien doctors stood frozen, watching something they could not explain. A human child was doing what their most advanced medicine could not do. He was bringing a dying creature back from the edge. Lowered the euthanasia device slowly. His scales were now bright orange, the color of complete confusion. "What is happening?" the younger doctor asked. Nobody had an answer. They could only watch as Danny, a 12-year-old human boy, held onto a dying and refused to let him go.